There is only one. In your eyes, it's me I see. There is only one. You are my reflection. We are one. We are one. Every mother, every father, daughter, son. All the things that make us different, they're the things that make us free. And we see we are one, we are one. And the dance of all creation has begun. We're so much younger than tomorrow, more ancient than the sun. In spirit we are many. There is only one of us. In your eyes, it's me I see. There is only one of us. You are my reflection. We are one. There is only one of us. We are one. There is only one. We are one. There is only one of us.
Please join me in prayer. And we are reminded today that a grand rising is the result of each and every one of us coming together. And today we know that oneness is the antidote for protecting ourselves with otherness. There is only one life. That life is God. That life is perfect, and that life belongs to each and every soul within the sound of my voice. Whether here in this sanctuary, in this space, listening online, wherever you are on planet Earth, there's no place that God is not. And so we give thanks for this perfect celebration that has come together here at New Dawn Center for Spiritual Living. And for all of the hands and hearts and minds that have gone into making this absolutely perfect in every way. We give thanks for Karen, our wonderful musician. We give thanks for Travis, our AV man. We are grateful for Lois and our hospitality team. We are grateful for our ushers, Nancy and Babs. We are grateful for each and every one who has shown up here today. in love, in the spirit of service to express as only they can. I give thanks for all of our practitioners who are here, holding a consciousness, holding space for everyone here, holding space for everyone in the world, to remind us that there is only one life and that life is God. All that God is, each and everyone in the sound of my voice is as well. And so we know that oneness is something that we have to actively cultivate. Yes, we contemplate it, we meditate about it, we pray about it, and we act upon it. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak these words and for everyone here within the sound of my voice. And I release this into the divine universal mind, into that law that knows how to mold, make, shape, and create all the good there is. It's already done in that divine mind. I let this go and I let it be. Together we affirm, and so it is. Our first words of inspiration today come from Robert Greene. It's a fundamental fact of human nature that our emotions are almost always ambivalent, rarely pure and simple. We can feel love and hostility at the same time, or admiration and envy. Our second set comes from John Rogers, The Tao of Spirit. We're all spiritual by our very natures. One person is not more spiritual than another, regardless of behavior, intelligence, ability, or anything else. All those things may affect expressions in a person's life. They do not affect a person's spirituality. From our founder, the Honorable Dr. Ernest Holmes, humanity is made up of innumerable individuals. No two are alike, and yet society is a composite whole moving gradually toward some ultimate goal. What could this goal be other than everyone, while remaining individual, shall find a more complete expression in and among all other individuals? This has been the dream of the ages, that the lion shall lie down with the lamb, and a little child shall lead them. As Jesus said, that they may be one, even as we are one. We are in for a treat. And you know, it almost feels kind of strange to say that Christine is a guest. Really, because she's like a part of the DNA here. She served a full year as our music director here. And she has a pulse on who we are. Recent graduate of ministerial school in June. Those who got to go out got to see her. So I know all that whole paneling thing. Piece of cake. You've got this in the bag. But I need to brag her up a little bit, to get you guys all excited, So as you know, Christine Renee Monks is a religious science practitioner, certified life coach, transgender activist, and public speaker. She did a wonderful class for us here before. It was very well received, and we were chatting. She's willing to do it again. And she knows some stuff. She can do some other classes for us too. And so I just love her spirit and her generosity for the New Dawn community. So she holds a Master of Arts in Consciousness Studies from the Holmes Institute and a Certificate of Ministerial Education from the Center for Spiritual Living School of Spiritual Leadership. And since her transformation from male to female in 2017, she's found her voice in ministry, choral singing, and trans advocacy. She sings with the Denver Feminist Choir and the Sage Singers, an elder LGBTQ plus chorus, and serves on the board of trustees for Mile High Church. She has given numerous Trans 101 talks to groups interested in supporting the transgender community more fully. So if you know somebody that is looking for a dynamic speaker that can speak to this, we've got one right here. Yeah. Her noble purpose is to share her lifelong gender dysphoria with the world in an authentic and vulnerable manner, prompting conversation and understanding between the cisgender and transgender communities to foster a greater empathy and acceptance. She becomes a minister upon passing her oral panels this month, and it'll probably be my great pleasure the next time she comes to talk to invite Reverend Christine Renee Monks. But, you know, we're just happy to have Christine, and she is right here right now. So without further ado, and to put an end to my hot dogging, come on up.
Well, he said he was going to say nice stuff about me, so I guess he didn't disappoint. So, oh goodness, let's see if I can get the clicker going in the right direction. Travis, I did it! I'm so proud. My work here is complete. Well, I think to introduce myself after that seems kind of redundant, doesn't it? But I'm really pleased to be here. I am Christine Renee Monks, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I do feel like I have a history with New Dawn, and I was really pleased to be invited back to speak. My talk today is about belonging and its opposite, othering. So it's kind of interesting. That's the global theme for this month for Science of Mind. And so it feels like this is something that many of us could speak to, but it's something that I feel comfortable speaking to. So Ernest Holmes reminds us that in mind there is no time, no space, no place. There is only wholeness, oneness, and eternity. And it's interesting because of our fundamental belief in oneness, the science of mind naturally challenges our tendency to want to make other people seem different, right? Because we acknowledge the oneness of all life, and yet there's some part of us that's wired to notice differences. I think this invites us, when we look for the oneness between us, to be more inclusive and have more compassion and more empathy for people, especially ones that we perceive to be different from ourselves. I think our tagline, "A world that works for all," should inspire us to embrace this inclusivity and belonging rather than trying to other people in some way. And I'll just say this seems especially challenging right now during an election season. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but there's quite a thing going on right now in this country. So I decided to put a little plug in for this. This is called My Election Intention, and it's 100 days of mindful practice leading up to the November 4th election. This was originally put on, or is sponsored by the David Alexander Center in Atlanta, but they've got some really good world-renowned speakers on this. And what happens is every morning between 7 and 8 o'clock, you get a phone call with a 2-minute spiritual practice message from one of the New Thought leaders. So you can sign up by texting JOIN to the number here, 470-784-0250. Or you can go to the website, myintentionelection.com. And I've been getting them every morning, and they're nice. They're nice to kind of reground me into who I know myself to be, but I can get forgetful. I can get triggered by something somebody says. So if this supports you, I'd invite you to try it. It's kind of nice when somebody's calling me at 7:30 in the morning. I'm thinking, why is my phone ringing now? And it's like, hi, this is Michael Gott. This is David Alexander, people that we know. So anyway. Oh, I was too fast. I can go back. Yeah, I can go backwards and forwards. I do it all. All right, thank you. So I suspect some of you may be unfamiliar with the term othering. So I think before we go real far in my talk, I ought to talk about what othering is. Othering is the process of singling out a minority of the population due to their differences. And this could be race, it could be religion, it could be nationality, it could be sexual orientation or gender expression. But what it does is it focuses on how we're different rather than how we're the same. And oftentimes this occurs with traditionally marginalized groups of people. And we assign these undesirable traits or qualities to them that tend to make us feel maybe superior. I don't know. I think different people have different motives on it. One of the books that I quote a lot when I speak, and I quoted last time I was here, was Sean Ginwright, his book, The Four Pivots. And we've done a lot of talk within the CSL about Sean Ginwright. But he talks about the process of othering in this way, in this quote. I explained to the group the process of othering, that is, assigning negative attributes to groups unlike your own, and belonging, the practice of cultivating the capacity to see the humanity in groups unlike our own, and its consequences for our collective effort for social change. Our real work as leaders, if we really want to create a healing-centered world, is to recognize how the process of othering leads to separation and ultimately dehumanization. Dehumanization. We need to find ways to embrace the humanity among those groups that we find most unlike ourselves. That's the key. I can find humanity in people who look like me. I mean, that's not the heavy lifting. I want to tell you a little bit of a personal story. When I was young, I wasn't very athletic. And since I was born as a boy, everybody assumed that that's what I was. Boy, were they wrong, huh? In elementary school, I had a nemesis gym teacher named Mr. Luxa. And he seemed to think that his job in life was to humiliate me because I wasn't very good in gym. And so his solution, and this was like I said, this was elementary school, 4th grade maybe. His solution was to make me run against the girls instead of running with the boys. Now, given the whole transgender thing these days about girls running with boys and boys running with girls, maybe he was just way ahead of his time with me and I didn't know it or appreciate it, right? But anyway, that was his way of othering me, is that you are so bad at this that you're not even worthy to run with the other boys, and we're not even sure whether you can beat any of the girls. And I share that not because I'm looking for any self-pity, because I'm sure Mr. Luxa was doing whatever he thought he was doing at the time that was supportive, but that's what othering feels like. When you feel like you're standing all by yourself and there is nobody on your side. There is nobody to take your stand with you. So even though Mr. Luxa hasn't been in my life for many years, I still can vividly tie into that feeling of that person, that little boy, who felt that way. I should explain to you that I brought my heart today because I sometimes have this tendency to get very cerebral in my talks, and so I remember to show you my heart. Because people don't care how much you know if they don't know how much you care. And I do care a lot. So I've started this little spiritual practice of bringing my crystal heart every time I talk, so I remember to show you my heart. So it may have seemed weird to you that I used my pronouns when I introduced myself earlier, and I wanted to explain a little bit why I do that. Traditionally, the only people who use pronouns are people who might use what you would consider non-standard pronouns. Okay, perhaps they use they, them, or something, zim, zer, or some of these non-binary pronouns. And when they do that, they essentially other themselves. Because we're also used to thinking, well, I know what your pronouns are. I don't need to ask you. And yet, my pronouns are a very personal thing. I happen to use she, her pronouns, but you don't know that if I don't tell you. You can say, well, I don't need to ask your pronouns. I'll just look at you and I'll tell you what they are. But gosh, would you do that with my name? Would you not ask me what my name is? Would you just say, well, you don't look like a Christine to me. I'll just call you whatever I want, right? So it's the same concept. So I do that to be supportive to my non-binary siblings or gender fluid siblings, and to make it a little more comfortable and seem less odd when somebody does it. Because I have done that sometimes and had people say, oh no, you're one of those people. See, and there's an othering right there, right? You're a person who gives us our pronouns when I don't really want to know your pronouns. Anyway, it's insidious how telling you my pronouns could essentially other myself, isn't it? Because that's not what I want to do. But it's interesting in this quote that I gave you from Ginwright is he also introduces this concept of belonging. So let's explore how we, as a CSL community, might create a more welcoming environment for belonging. Many centers have DEI groups, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And some of them have added an R, which is for respect, sorry. Total blank. And then a B, which is for belonging. But oftentimes people don't know how to foster that within a group that looks somewhat homogeneous. And one of the things you'll find in a lot of our CSL centers is we tend to look pretty homogeneous. But inviting diversity and creating a container where somebody who doesn't look exactly like us can feel welcome and picture themselves being successful as part of this community, that I think is our work. So I'm going to propose to you that curiosity is the first step in creating belonging and acceptance within that, is being curious about what it would be like if we had people of different age brackets in our group, different nationalities, different gender expressions, all sorts of things. What would that look like? Would that make us more fractured, or would it make us more recognizing our wholeness? I'll submit that I think it might be the latter. So let me give you a couple really compelling quotes to support this. So Socrates said the desire to know is the most beautiful thing in the world, in a human being. And his buddy Aristotle said curiosity is the first step on the road to knowledge. So how good is that? So how might you cultivate your own internal curiosity? Because I hate to tell you, it's an inside job, right? Nobody can be curious on your behalf. How might you take a stand for belonging when you experience othering yourself or you witness someone else being othered and you don't know what to do? I'm a transgender woman, and as a transgender woman, I often feel othered by people. With regard to the transgender community right now, it's very interesting because there is this huge pushback about transgender athletes, transgender children, gender-affirming care, and this is especially true in states that have conservative or typically Republican legislators or governors. And as a result, I think about bathroom laws. Now, I suspect probably most of you don't think about bathroom laws, and I think that's great, because I don't actually wish I didn't think about bathroom laws. But there's a big push against people, transgender people specifically, using bathrooms based on how they identify. And in fact, in some states, there are laws that prevent people from using bathrooms based on their gender identity. So in preparing for this talk, I actually went and looked up the laws in the states, because there's some websites that do it. So, and the hard thing is, it doesn't affect people like me typically. It affects kids, right? It's little kids, where we have legislatures dictating things. And this isn't really a talk about transgender stuff, but I'm at least trying to personalize it. There are 2 states where there are laws on the books where it's illegal to use a bathroom that isn't based on your sex assigned at birth. And that's Florida and Utah. Now, that may not surprise you, given some of the political rhetoric we were talking about earlier, but by far and away, Florida's is the most restrictive because it defines sex, to use a bathroom, I guess, as based on your sex assigned at birth and your chromosomes. So now, I don't know how many of you have checked your chromosomes lately. I am pretty certain that never in the history of humankind have we decided whether you're a man or a woman based on your chromosomes. You know? It's only been recently we could even look at anybody's chromosomes. And yet, Florida thinks that that's the way to decide what bathroom you should use. So I have this thought that there's going to be little cheek swab things that at every restroom where we're going to have to go in. Utah, even though they're not known for their progressive thinking, is at least a state where they say if you've had gender-affirming surgery or something, you can use that restroom. So at least I wouldn't be breaking the law by using the women's restroom in Utah. But I would in Florida. But I'm just here to tell you, I would just be civilly disobedient, and I would expect any ladies who were with me in Florida to use the restroom with me as a support of solidarity, because I would not go into a men's restroom. It wouldn't be safe for me. It would just be weird, right? But that's how these things take on lives of their own, far beyond it. And it's just indicative of why we shouldn't think about othering people. But there are other ways that we other people. We do it based on our age. Okay, I'm a baby boomer. I hate it when somebody younger says, "Hey, boomer, you don't get it," right? And I won't say that we haven't ever done it. It's like sometimes I think, well, millennials don't exactly get it, right? But we're doing the same thing, aren't we? We're focusing on our differences rather than our oneness. Part of it is it's so easy for us to make up a story about the people that we're othering. It starts off like, he is not like us, he is not like us, and therefore we turn it into, therefore he probably does not like us. So we turn that person into an enemy merely because we have noticed that. And there's only one word that I changed in those 2 sentences. He is not like us, therefore he does not like us. But look at the power of that. And it's not necessarily a power, I think, for greater good or higher vibration, but it certainly can become powerful. At the Centers for Spiritual Living, we advocate for a world that works for all. We believe that each of us is a manifestation of one divine mind. Russell talked about that when he was doing his spiritual mind treatment. I call this divine mind or intelligence God, But there's no name that we could come up with that does justice to this. This is just a name that we choose, that some of us have more hang-ups around than others. But it's the concept that's important. If we are each manifestations of one divine, how can there be anything that we consider to be other? There is no other. There's only God. Present in this room, present in this slide deck, in this building, everywhere. It's just God. So why do we other people? What does that do for us? I think we're socialized from a really young age to notice differences in things. We separate things by shape. We separate them by color. I have 2 granddaughters. One just turned 3, one just turned 1. The 3-year-old is just fascinated with differentiation. We go over who's a girl and who's a boy. I'm a girl, mommy's a girl, Nana's a girl, daddy's a boy. We tell them how to separate their colors. What color is that? That's a green light. What does a green light mean? It means go. She is so proud that she's learning all this. But this is part of where we get this from. And I honestly think biologically we're wired to other. I think it goes back to some tribal survival techniques. We needed to be able to differentiate between someone of our tribe and someone who was a saber-toothed tiger, perhaps. That would be a good distinction to notice. But most of us don't run into saber-toothed tigers all that often anymore. And I think it's something we want to rise above. Even if we're hardwired in our brain and our biology for it, I think we can do better. We can easily take this differentiation of shapes and colors and turn it into like me or not like me, which is that other thing with the tribe that I was talking about. And part of it is we alienate the other people and we kind of reinforce our own moral superiority, I think. And that's the danger for our society. And I think it's also potentially a defense mechanism where we just don't want to have our thinking challenged. We don't want to have our beliefs challenged. We don't want to get uncomfortable. I mean, who likes to be comfortable, right? Most of us. I mean, it's interesting, I brought that up. My talk last time was getting comfortable with discomfort, if anybody was here. You know, even I don't like to be discomfortable, right? It's just not that darn fun. I think it also helps us feel like we're in control of ourselves and our lives. If I can control the narrative in my brain, I'm in charge, and then I don't have to deal with that list of uncomfort. A Course in Miracles, which I'm a fan of, teaches that everything is love or a cry for love. So based on that duality, if there is that duality, I think what that tells us that othering must be a cry for help. Because it certainly isn't love, at least as I see it manifesting. At its heart, othering is a fear of the unknown. In his Sermon by the Sea that Ernest Holm delivered on August 15th, 1959, I knew I was going to do something. He says this, and I think this is exceptionally touching. He says, find me one person who is for something and against nothing, who is redeemed enough not to condemn others out of the burden of his soul, and I will find another Savior, another Jesus, and an exalted human being. Now, many of you, I suspect, have heard that part of the quote before, but it's interesting because it goes on. And he says in the next paragraph, find me someone who is no longer sad, whose memory has been redeemed from morbidity, and I shall hear laughter. And then the third part of that is find me someone whose song is really celestial, because it is the outburst of the cosmic urge to sing, and I shall hear the music of the spheres. Isn't that lovely? I just think that whole thing is so nice. And then later on in this sermon, which I think is just so wonderful, He says, when I say find a person, I don't mean go to London or go to Rome or go to your center. It's an internal search. The people, these people, they all exist within us. That's the people we're looking for, is that part of our being that is not against things, that tells what they're for and accepts the rest of that as contrast. So I'm going to ask or invite everyone to be that person, both for yourself and for your community. Don't participate in othering, and if you see someone being othered, do what you can to stand up and not make that person feel all alone like that. One of the things I did thinking about this talk was think, what is my call to action? What are we really being called to do with this? And I think it's important to take a stand for what we believe in, not what we're against. Because there is no law of repulsion in the world. There's a law of an attraction. And what we think about and give our attention to, we get more of. So if we focus on othering, whether we're for it or against it, we'll get more othering. So let's focus on belonging and inclusivity. What would it take for us to create a more welcoming container so that people who show up here could see themselves thriving as a member of our community here? Because that's really what we want, right? We want to be a thriving, loving community. God always says yes to what we give our attention to. No exception. So let's give our attention to something that we believe in. What is mine to do? What is yours to do? That's a question each of us asks ourselves all the time. It's not my job to say what is yours to do. But it's an invitation to try to be for inclusion and belonging and seeing what we can do to make that a reality. So the next time you see a political commercial, you hear someone say something that you think is the most ignorant thing you've ever heard, instead of just immediately condemning them, just take a breath. Realize that this person is expressing God just as you are, to the absolute best of their ability, even though it's sometimes hard to see. But I always remind myself, if I can't see God in another person, whose problem do you think it is? Do you think God isn't showing up big enough for Christine to recognize it? I suspect it's probably my lack of ability to see that rather than God's ability to not show up sufficiently for me. So just take a moment, recenter yourself, breathe, and then decide your actions from there. Let's take a minute and pray together. I recognize that there is but one presence here, and that presence I call God. That God is for everything and against nothing. That God manifests itself in our physical universe, in each and every one of us, in each and everything that we have. That God is love. There is nothing but love. And I know that I am a manifestation of that which I call God, as are each and every one of the people here today, and each and every one of our co-inhabitants in this planet and whatever life exists otherwise. Each of us is God manifesting. And the contrast helps this intelligence clarify and expand itself. Even though I don't understand how infinity can expand, I trust that it does and becomes more. So as we go forth this week, I just know for each of us that we have that ability to be welcoming and inclusive and create belonging and connection and empathy and compassion with other people we meet. And we can be a force for peace in the world. I'm so grateful for this container we call New Dawn and the light that it shines in the world. I release these words into the law, knowing they are already so. And so it is.
Sometimes the things people say can be so unkind, so cruel. I remember the days, the pain of being bullied at school. So you wonder how a lonely little girl made it through. Well, I had two teachers who cared, and my mom and my dad, they were always there. I believe in love. Love will save the day. Isn't that right? Love is an answer, not a cliche. Don't let anything but love help you find your way. I believe in love. I believe in love. So we have to believe that what we stand for. We believe in our truth. Let it wrap you with warmth and kindness and fill you with love and truth. Think of somebody who loves you, someone you really love too. They would go to the ends of the earth for you. That's what love can do. I believe in love. Love is not a cliche. I'm gonna stand for freedom, and it's gonna save the day. It is, I promise. Don't let anything but love lift you up. It's gonna show you the way. We believe in love. Love is our truth. We believe